A little after 7 a.m. on the 3rd of February 1996, the Orange County Police Department responded to a call over Lil Chump convenience store, which was located on Clarcona-Ocoee Road in Orlando, Florida. A certain witness had called the police attention to an odd discovery that morning. According to the witness, he was driving by the Lil Chump convenience store around 6:55 a.m. when he noticed that the store's lights were off. He found it strange because the store workers would usually open by that time to commence sales. Just to be sure of what was happening, the witness attempted to enter the store, but before that, he turned around and parked close to the store to look through the windows. He claimed he didn't see a store clerk, which was unusual. A nagging suspicion then made him to contact the police to relay his concerns before driving away. When the deputies arrived at the scene, they found two guys from an armored car company waiting to pick up a cash deposit at the store, but the door was locked. The deputies called the store phone, but nobody answered. They then made a brief rounds at the store and discovered in the parking lot a white car. Deputies ran a license plate check and discovered that the car belonged to the store manager, Terrence Paquette. They called Terrence residence to confirm if he was home, but they didn't get any response either. There was no way for the deputies to get into the store as it was already locked from the outside. Luckily, another employee from the store who had closed the night before was just driving by when he spotted the police at the front of the store. He then let the deputies in with his own keys. While they tried to open the door, the police discovered a minor amount of blood on the exterior lock. On getting inside, the police found Terrence Paquette, the store manager, on the floor of the men's restroom, already dead in a pool of blood. According to the medical examiner, Terrence Paquette had suffered from multiple stab wounds. He had been stabbed 73 times around his neck, torso, and extremities. His heart and lungs were severely punctured. Investigators observed a considerable amount of bloodstains around the store and concluded that the person who stabbed Terrence Paquette had also been hurt. There were bloodstains in several locations of the store, particularly on the freezer door, the freezer flap, the lottery machine behind the counter, the key cylinder on the entry and exit door, and the door push bar. The blood patterns in the store demonstrated the suspect's movement throughout the area, from the restroom to the beverage freezer to behind the cash register where money was stolen, and ultimately on the entry and exit door where the suspect most likely fled the scene. According to the deputies, after taking about $1,000 from the safe underneath the cash register, the perpetrator took Terrence Paquette's keys and locked the doors to the store. The question of who could have murdered Terrence bugged the police and his family at the time. Terrence Paquette was said to have arrived at the Lil Champ food store between 5 and 6 in the morning to set up for a 6 a.m. opening like he usually did. Unfortunately, within a few minutes of arriving at the store, he was brutally murdered by an unidentified assailant. The police questioned those who knew him, but nothing much was known about Terrence because he had only recently relocated to Orlando, Florida. He worked 60 hours a week and did not have many known acquaintances. The investigators rapidly followed up on all leads in an effort to identify his killer, but there were hardly any witnesses to the crime. Although they had all the necessary evidence, the investigators lacked the means to put it to use. The blood samples taken from different locations at the crime scene were sent to a crime lab, and all samples were determined to have originated from the same unidentified killer. The following year, in 1997, a detective closed the case and documented it that it was pending further investigative leads. On July 22, 2003, a different detective reopened the case, re-interviewing witnesses and obtaining buccal swabs to compare with the suspect's blood, but there were no matches found. On March 17, 2003, an analyst entered the unidentified DNA profile from the freezer door handle into the combined DNA index database, but no matches were found either. Another detective, Brian Savelli, took up the investigation in 2019 and kept working to identify the suspect whose blood had been left behind in various locations of the store. During the course of going through the case, the idea of genetic genealogy came to Detective Brian Savelli's mind. Genetic genealogy uses a known DNA profile to reverse engineer a family tree for the unknown suspect. It became a well-liked new investigative tool in 2018 when the officials in California used it to pinpoint the Golden State Killer. Finally, in March 2021, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement was contacted by the Orange County Sheriff's Office to help with the investigation. To create a thorough genealogical profile that may be utilized to generate fresh leads that could help identify Terrence Piquette's killer, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement hired Othram to use cutting-edge DNA testing. Othram created a thorough genealogical profile using forensic-grade genome sequencing. After the profile was successfully created, Othram gave it to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, whose detectives uploaded the DNA profile into two open ancestry databases, GetMatch and Family Tree. They later created a family tree, and it revealed that the blood samples originated from a person who shared genetic ancestry with a couple, Kenneth Stowe Sr. and his wife. Investigators were then led to the couple's 3 children. Authorities started a background check on the 3 children and discovered that one of them, Kenneth Robert Stowe Jr., a 54-year-old Eustis resident, had lived across the street from Terrence Piquette in 1996. Kenneth Robert Stowe was 28 years old at the time of the murder. Detective Brian Savelli also found out that he had once worked at the Lilchamp convenience store. All the puzzles were coming together. In order to apprehend the murderer, detectives got the court order to commence a GPS surveillance on Robert Stowe Jr. The GPS device was placed in his vehicle on August 27, 2021, outside of his building supply business. According to Detective Brian Savelli, while following Robert Stowe on September 14, 2021, he saw him throw a bag filled with beer cans into a trash can. The bag was taken by the detective and submitted at the Orange County's crime scene unit for testing. Forensics discovered that the DNA on one of the beer cans matched the blood from the beverage freezer door handle in 1996. On November 2, 2012, authorities arrested Robert Stowe using the fresh evidence. When questioned, he acknowledged working at the convenience store but denied killing Terrence Piquette. Robert Stowe is charged with first-degree murder with a firearm and robbery with a deadly weapon. He was ordered to be jailed without bond by a judge. Since Terrence Piquette's death, all of his family members have passed away, but officials informed a number of his friends about the arrest in the case.